We have our good friend Derrell Peel here to talk about livestock markets. And Derrell, let's just jump into it. How are things looking in the markets?
You know, most all of the markets have been moving up recently. In fact, it's been kind of a nice thing to have the markets all kind of move in the same direction, but at different paces right now. We've seen, you know, the feeder cattle markets have been the hottest over the summer. We've seen a very strong move up in feeder cattle prices over the last 3 months or so, since lows in May. Fed cattle prices and wholesale box beef prices both bottomed in the summer. We've moved past those lows. We've moved somewhat higher, but it's a bit more of a slower grind on those. You know, from the standpoint of both feedlot supplies and in box beef production, you know, we're moving towards higher numbers. We're going to move towards a significant decrease in both slaughter and beef production in the last part of the year. But for another month or two here, it's a bit more of a slow grind as we make progress in the fall.
Okay, and speaking of fall, a lot of producers are thinking about wheat pasture. What are you hearing about that?
You know, with the improvement we've had in moisture conditions, removal of the drought in much of Oklahoma, and even some of the areas that are still in drought and still have some underlying drought issues, they've received moisture recently. And so the best prospects really, I think, for fall wheat pasture establishment this year in Oklahoma that we've seen in a long time. I've done quite a bit of traveling lately, and I've seen a lot of field work done. You know, fertilizers being applied, folks are getting ready. I suspect in this, you know, post-Labor Day period, we'll see an awful lot of activity across much of Oklahoma as folks plant wheat and get ready for some early fall forage for the first time in several years.
It's kind of a nice change.
That's right.
And let's talk about forage as a whole across the Southern Plains, not just Oklahoma.
You know, in general, we've seen a lot of improvement in drought conditions. We do still have some drought areas that's increasingly confined to the western Great Plains, if you will, western Kansas, western Nebraska, and then down through the New Mexico area. There's still a lot of drought, but even much of those areas, again, have received at least some moisture recently. They've greened up. They're going to get a little bit of fall pasture growth. And so even there's some improvement, even though they still have underlying drought conditions.
Okay, are prices on cattle worth putting those cattle on wheat?
You know, we've seen the big run up in feeder cattle prices, and so, you know, that impacts the margin from the standpoint of a higher purchase price as well as stronger prices for what you expect to sell. The margins are generally somewhat attractive. You know, as we push these prices higher, we're going to price all of the margin out of these cattle, if you will. But right now, I think it still works, and relative to what the futures market is, there's a good opportunity for wheat pasture cattle this fall. I think a lot of folks will be looking at those cattle, and there is an opportunity there. We have to be a little careful going forward. We may have more wheat pasture than we really have cattle available. Right. That may tend to push the prices higher than they really can afford to be. And so I think producers have to be a little bit careful with their budgeting, but in general, there is a good opportunity for wheat pasture this fall.
Something to think about.
Absolutely.
Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.